It's true for any relationship. And it's called 1:5 rule, which shows how the mind and generally the minds of this world have the bias towards negativity. So if I have an incident which is perceived negative by somebody whom I care about, whose relationship is very important to me, generally to annul that negative interaction, experts empirically say that we need 5 positive interactions to annul 1 negative interaction. So mathematically, +1 -1 becomes neutral, 0. But in relationships, they find that negative interactions hurt more than positive interactions impacting positively. And they call it as the negative bias of the mind, and that's what we live with. And if we manage to come out of that bias, then we are all intelligent people. When we are in the normal default state of our living, generally negativity bothers us more than the positive impact of positivity. And marketing people know that very well, as I shared with you. Generally, when a customer is very upset with a product or a company, they tend to tell, say, 10 people. And if a customer is delighted with the product, generally they tell that to maximum, say, 2 or 3 people, right? So the negative and positive are not equal in a real practical life. And that's where this relationship rule comes in very beautifully, where I realize that any negative interactions or transactions I have with somebody whom I care for, whom I think is very important for my relationship, is going to have a dent. That's certain. Even if you package it beautifully, even if you tell it nicely, even if you do it very positively, there is still, when people say that there is something wrong with what you said or did, is going to certainly create a small dent in the relationship, because the universal human need is only that of acceptance and agreement, generally. So when people really say, give me honest, brutal feedback, they actually are hoping that I have none to offer, you see, which is negative. And that I realized mostly, as I'm saying, I'm talking about 99% of people, I can't generalize. So I'd rather be safe and then make sure that they really want a negative feedback before I can give. And of course, if there are people under my wings to, sort of counsel and train and all that, my relationship with them at times need to be suboptimal, because my whole goal is not to have a sweet relationship with my trainee, but to actually make him or her stand on our own legs. And when they get mature enough, they would be grateful to me. And maybe in the meantime, they may not have so nice feelings about me. But that's my role, and I'm ready for it, you see. And even that, I'm saying, when I say honest, brutal feedback, I'm giving it in a very positive way. I'm not trying to hurt them. I'm not judgmental. Even such a feedback would have a dent. If it is done in a very judgmental way or evaluative way, it's going to be a bigger dent. And so in a relationship rule, we understand the cost of a so-called negative transaction in the relationship. And so the whole idea is to, how do I buffer it up? At times, I need to do something which is called a necessary evil. So how do I buffer this necessary evil of giving feedback which may not be very much appreciated or liked by the person, but necessary for that person? How do I buffer it? And they use a wonderful technique called the sandwich rule, where obviously everything is a mixed bag. You see, there is always something which is positive about any act, and there is always an area of improvement in any act. So they say the easiest way is to sandwich it, you see, like put the Karela between the lobes, you see, and then give it. And you say, this is something which is beautiful, which you have done, and this is something which you can improve. And by the way, what you actually dealt with in this topic is just exemplary. So we are buffering essential, yet not so positive feedback with some stuff which a person can feel happy about and proud about, and give it as a package. And in that, I have realized, with me, myself, when I did my first public lecture and asked for feedback, I made the mistake of asking for honest, brutal feedback. And I got the honest, brutal feedback. And I realized the mistake which people are making when they give feedback, which I myself make when I received it. Many times when we are giving advice or giving feedback, we don't see the pitfalls. The best learning is done when you receive it, isn't it? So when I received it, the person who was giving me the feedback, which are valid points, I've immediately incorporated. The whole problem was the usage of the word but, okay? And we don't realize it when we give. But when we take, it makes all the difference. And generally, the feedback which came was, your talk was all very good. And you quoted beautifully Bhagavad Gita, everything, but, and that three-letter word completely made everything zero. So that person intended to give me positives and negatives. But that person landed up giving me positives, but negative, which means it annuls the positive totally. It may not be the intention, but to the receiver, it does deal a blow. And that's the reason why I've realized if you're truly inclusive, but has no place there. You see, it's an and saying that I appreciate those parts of your speech which you have delivered so well. And there are some places where we need to improve, is actually a better way of expression and thinking rather than trying to focus on, I think you made a mistake, I need to set it right. So what you did positive doesn't matter. I need to only focus on what you need to improve. And generally, it's a good intention, but we have to understand that the person who receives that needs to actually be receptive to that. And for that, I think instead of but and is very well, where I know that I need to give some feedback, I need to improve, and I also need to appreciate and strengthen positives. I saw a very interesting concept given by a very intelligent person. That person said, suppose, music for me, even if I try my level best to be a good singer, from a scale of 10, from 3, I can best go to 6, which means below average singer. And if I am very good in speaking, for example, understanding concepts and making it simple for people to follow, etc., if I am somewhere around 8, and I put the same effort in that which is my strength, I can go up to 9.5, which would actually place me well above the average, and maybe it would be remarkable for me as an actualized person. And that's the reason why it's very simple that I need to both strengthen my positives and also address my negatives. And very beautifully, they say strengthening positives actually mean that I start looking for them. I start recording them, because if I don't, then I tend to lose it. I don't see it at all. And a very classic example in training sessions is ask the people in the room who are typical corporate leaders to say how many circular objects are in the room. Just close your eyes and write down a number. I have still not seen most of them, 99% of them never cross 20, you see. And then I ask them, open your eyes, look around, and now tell me how many are there. And suddenly it's innumerable, because the number of people in the room are around 50. There are 2 eyes. The eyeballs are round in shape, you see, starting from that to a bottle, the cap of the bottle, the ceiling, the bulbs, the chandelier, and the round tables. They say, oh my God, there are innumerable round objects in the room. Why were you not aware of that before? The answer is very simple. I was not looking for them, you see. And that's the same story for positives also, possibly, where generally if I don't look for them, I tend to grossly underestimate positive things which happen around me or positive things which happen on me, which is the reason why the and is very important, that I strengthen the positives, not to just buffer the negatives. The loaf is as much important because it's multigrain, not maida. So it is as healthy as the important part, which is the actual, the vegetables and the lettuce between the 2 loaves. And so that is the reason why strengthening the positives, I guess, is as important. It's called positive reinforcement, which is as important as trying to correct the negatives. And the happy marriage rules works very well. Happy relationship rules works very well when we realize the importance of both, where I need to make sure that the positives are reinforced, and also see if I can address any areas of improvement, and see it as an end. And I had a lovely session with school principals in Trivandrum. This was, I think, about 6 or 7 years back. So one of the principals happened to be the mother of our Satsangi in America, and so she's invited to come and address. In that, I was talking about this positive reinforcement, and one of the convent school principal gave a lovely personal story which sort of reinforced the positive thought I also had. There was an habitual latecomer in our school. Okay, that kid in the fourth standard or fourth grade, as they call it, comes almost late 80% of the times, right? So the class teacher got tired of admonition, threatening and more threatening and complaining. Nothing worked. Letter to the parents didn't work. Nothing worked. So finally, the teacher went to the headmistress, the, the principal was actually talking to me, and said, "This chap is always late." If you're a very intelligent person, you have to look out for such words like always, everywhere. All these are not true. Nothing is always, nothing is everywhere. And Desha, Kala, or Vyakti are not to be generalized. So the principal asked, when you say always, what is his attendance percentage? The teacher said, always. I said, told you 80%. And she said, 80% is not always now. 80% is 80% of the time. So don't worry about it. Next time when this kid comes late, you deal with it. When the kid comes on time, send him to my room. You see. And generally the kid can manage, a teacher admonition. And that day it came on time, that 20% of the time. And immediately the teacher would go and meet the principal. And the kid was totally confused. Actually, I came properly on time. Why is she sending me to a principal's room? And the principal came, made the kid sit down and said, how did you come on time today? Why are you on time today? He said, wow. And the kid could not answer. Then the teacher said, just come one more day on time tomorrow and tell me why you are on time tomorrow. You see? So the child actually did a hat trick. 3 days in a row it came on time. And then the child was able to understand why it was late. It said that, I had to play other days. The 3 days I didn't play too much late in the night. So I went to sleep on time. And hence I was able to wake up on time. And hence I came to school on time. And the principal immediately shook the hands of the child and said, can you replicate it another 7 days? I don't want you to come on time all the time. Just do it 7 more days and come and meet me. And the kid came the 7 days and the teacher gave him a bar of chocolate or whatever healthy option she gave. And then the child ate it. And then she said the next year the child was 100% on time, beating all records. And she said, I was myself not convinced of that reinforced positives thing, but I thought I will give it a try. And it worked like magic. And that's the beauty of reinforcing positives, and which is as important, or rather it's, if you ask me, more important than even correcting negatives, because both are important. First among equals is reinforcing positives. Generally, we take positives for granted, and over time it may actually decay. You see, nature means decay. So if you allow it on its own natural path, it actually decays over time, and hence it needs reinforcement. And that's the reason why I think 1:5 need not be looked only on the side of 1 or 5. It needs to be looked together, where I need to take as much care and as much deliberate. I have to be deliberate, as much deliberate when I'm trying to reinforce a positive, as much as I want to correct a negative. And that's the reason why a happy relationship rules actually allows for looking for things which are going right as much as we notice, or of course we can't fail to notice that which is not going right. And I think it's a very important rule.